On today's show, there's a lot of chatter across the league about trades that might go down. Could the Cavs get involved with any of them? I think that might be a little bit more difficult than you imagine. I'll tell you why next on today's edition of Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? My name's Danny Cunningham. You might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers, places like my new Substack, The Inside Shot, Cleveland Magazine, 92.3 The Fan, and a number of other stops along the way. I want to say thank you to you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure they're subscribed as well. If you're watching the show on YouTube, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content, a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's show, of course, sponsored by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. So the Cleveland Cavaliers have been a team who we've seen pop up in trade rumors. I know it was reported, I believe, by Mark Stein earlier this week that the Cavs are a team that could do a 2-for-1 deal. And I think that the Cavs are going to be a team that you're going to hear pop up when it comes to, should this team make a trade? Should that team make a trade? The Cavs are going to be a team that we're going to think about because they are a true contender, and that's what happens with true contenders. So I was doing a bit of an AMA on Monday night during that 35-minute delay between the time that Tristan Thompson, I think it's fair to say at this point, broke the basket and the Cavs and Jazz actually got started. And one of the questions that I got was about whether or not this Cavs team should be a team that could make a trade, or who should this Cavs team be targeting. So instead of just putting that out there, I wanted to address it in this form. I thought that it'd be good for an opportunity for us to kind of talk it out and just see, okay, what goes into that decision? How easy is it to get there? And here's the questions that I think have to pop up. When you talk about making a trade, obviously the Cavs are in a position where they're making a trade to get better, right? They're not making a trade just for the sake of making a trade. So where can they get better? I think the first thing that pops up, and I think a lot of you probably said as I asked that question, well, they could use a little bit more depth behind Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley. And I think that's spot on. I think that is the first place that I look as a potential area where this team can still improve. Tristan Thompson is on the roster. I think Tristan Thompson is great in that locker room. I think he's important to this team. But I don't think that if Evan Mobley or Jarrett Allen are injured for 3 weeks, which, of course, knock on wood, you don't want to see happen. You don't want anyone to get injured. But if they have to miss time for 3 weeks, do you trust Tristan Thompson to go out there and be a guy that can fill in for that long and be effective? I'm not sure that he's at that point in his career still. I think that is an area where the Cavs don't have enough depth. Yes, they're not going to play. If one of those guys goes down, they're not going to play two bigs nearly as much as they do right now. But let's just say Jarrett Allen goes out, Evan Mobley can't play 48 minutes a night. And you trust Dean Wade to play center the 16 minutes that Evan Mobley is not going to be on the floor playing 32 minutes a night. I don't know that that's the avenue you want to go on. I think that's a very matchup dependent thing. We saw against the Washington Wizards a couple of weeks ago, we saw Tristan Thompson play a little bit. It's okay, but I don't know that that's something that the Cavs should and will trust for, a 3-week stretch. Or if something were to happen in the playoffs like it did last year where Jarrett Allen missed, I believe, 7 postseason games. Do you trust Tristan Thompson in that spot? I don't think I do. I think he's great for this team. I think he's got value, but I don't know that that's where that value lies. So that's the first area I look at. I also do think that adding a little bit of depth on the wing could be something that makes sense for the Cavs to do, because you go up and down the roster of guys who play on the wing. They've all missed time because of injury. Isaac Okoro is out right now with that shoulder injury. Max Strus obviously missed the first 9 weeks of the season with an ankle injury. Dean Wade has missed a ton of time throughout his career. He's missed a few games this year because of injury, but he's been somebody that has I think, been given the injury riddled tag, and I don't think it's unfair at this point with how much time he does seem to miss. Karis LeVert missed a couple of weeks with a knee thing. Sam Merrill has missed time with an ankle injury, and he's had some pretty significant ankle injuries in the past. So really everybody on the wing that has been a contributor for this team has missed time at some point or another. And that to me is something that is a little bit concerning, because if you lose one of those guys, particularly the high end one, like I've talked so much about how Karis LeVert is really important to the success of this team. I think Max Strus is going to be awesome once he's in the starting lineup. Like, all of those guys provide value in their own way, and they're all a little bit different, which I do think is kind of the beauty of the depth of this Cavs team, is that they don't have players. I know that you can say it about the starting lineup, but in terms of the depth players, they don't have a ton of guys that overlap. And I think that's a really good thing that makes up for a little bit that kind of Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley have a little bit more overlap than maybe you'd like. Same thing for Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland, but the rest of the roster really doesn't. And I think that's a really good thing. So those are the two areas that I look at as saying, okay, here's where the Cavs could make an upgrade. Here's where they could trade for somebody. But then it becomes, who are you targeting, right? Like, what specific players? I know Larry Nance Jr. is going to be a name that we hear a lot, because Larry Nance Jr. is a guy that has played here, that is from here, that is not seeing a ton of time playing in Atlanta for the Hawks. I don't know what direction the Hawks want to go in. I think that all of those things matter. And I do think that when you're talking about trading for an additional big, you need to be talking about somebody that can play both center and power forward, because I do think that you're going to want to still play two bigs at certain points, not a lot, but at certain points you're going to want to do that. I think he's a name that makes sense. I know I brought up Dorian Finney-Smith last week with Greg Schwartz. I believe I brought him up on yesterday's show too. Cam Johnson, I think, is someone who would be perfect, but he's going to cost too much. He's going to cost a little bit too much in terms of draft capital that the Cavs just don't have to give up. So that's kind of where we're at with the trades. And do those things make sense? Yeah, they do. But now what's the other side of that coin? The other side of that coin is, well, to get somebody, you're going to have to give somebody up. You're not going to be able to just bring somebody in without sending anyone away. And that question is, well, who are you willing to part with? And I know exactly what you just said. You just said, let's trade Georges Niang and Jalen Tyson, right? I don't know that that's the answer here. And we've all heard, and I've seen it firsthand, the way this locker room operates, that they all get along great, that it's a special atmosphere inside that locker room, that this team is a really close-knit team in a way that not a lot of teams in the NBA, not a lot of teams in professional sports are. So if you do make a deal, the Cavs would be risking that environment. And that's not something that is quantifiable on the floor. Like, the environment doesn't score a certain number of points per game or collect a certain number of rebounds per game. But I do think, like, someone like Georges Niang, I think, is a big part of how this team operates. Yeah. Are his stats the best on the team? Absolutely not. Like, he is somebody that he's a good basketball player. I think he's had a relatively good year for the Cavs, but he's sort of a replacement level player, right? He's shooting 37% from three, which is fine. He's doing sort of everything that the Cavs need him to do. But I think the things he does off the floor are some of the more important contributions that he has to this roster, to this franchise. I think that he matters. And, go look at where he has been before. Go look at when Utah was at its best. Georges Niang was part of that. Go look at when Philly was at its best. Georges Niang was part of that. And I understand Utah wanted to get into a rebuild, but they didn't get into a rebuild when Georges Niang left, and things were not as good inside that locker room when he left Salt Lake City. Philadelphia, things have been a dumpster fire since Georges Niang left that locker room. I'm not saying he's the difference between the Cavs winning a title and not, but I am saying he's a really good thing for that locker room. And I don't know that moving him is as easy as it is when you just plug him into the trade machine because of his $8 million salary. I just think there's a lot more that has to go into that decision than, oh, he makes this much, this player's better than him. There's a lot more to that dynamic. And the other one that pops up is Jalen Tyson, right? Because we haven't seen Jalen Tyson on the floor a ton yet for the Cavs, but he's somebody that I can tell you from conversations I've had with people inside that organization, they're still very high on Jalen Tyson. Just because he hasn't played a ton this year doesn't mean they don't view him as someone who's going to be a significant contributor for this franchise for years to come. It's really crowded right now in the wing. I just went through a number of guys that see significant time, and Jalen Tyson's still developing. He's still growing as a player, but they still have a lot of belief in him. So, and the other aspect of this too, there are several guys that are on expiring contracts. Like Karis LeVert is one that somebody that is on an expiring contract. Is Karis LeVert indispensable? I don't think I'd go quite that far, but he's also not somebody I'm looking to trade unless it is a clear upgrade for the Cavs. That's where I'm at with him. So you're not going to be able to bring everybody back next year. Like, this team is going to look different, and Jalen Tyson is going to have a role on this team next season, and I think for years to come. I'm telling you guys, the Cavs are very high on him as a basketball player. So are you willing to say, okay, this is a big part of our future, but the time is now, and we need to make this move now? I think that is an interesting conversation to have. I really do. The Cavs believe in him a lot. I don't know if they think he's a future starter or a future sixth man or what, but they think he is a future key cog in that rotation. And that is something that you do have to think about, because if they're going to make a trade, it's a trade to win a title right now. There are guys you are going to have to be willing to separate yourselves from in that trade. But I'm glad that Kobe Altman's the one that has to make that decision and not me, because I think it's a really, really difficult decision to be in. But it's a good place to be too. You don't want to be having these conversations because instead of being 26-4, the Cavs are 15-15. So it's a really good place to be. I'm fascinated to see how this is going to go. And I didn't get into the salary cap structure and just like where the Cavs are at in terms of the luxury tax and whatnot, but that matters in this conversation too. Another question I was asked the other night was, hey, the Cavs are going to be in the playoffs. Boston, we know, is great. Who else could give the Cavs problems? Who else are the tougher matchups in the Eastern Conference for the Cavs? Let's talk through that next right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is my go-to ticket marketplace. Game Time should be your go-to ticket marketplace. And part of the reason why Game Time is where I go for tickets is because you can go there for more than just sports. It's not just going there, hey, I want to go to a Cavs game, I'm going to go on Game Time. No, that's not how that works. I mean, it does work like that, but it's more than just Cavs games. You want to go see a show. You want to go see a concert. Whatever you want to go see, Game Time can help get you in the door. They do that better than anybody else. And the other thing Game Time does better than anybody else is they take the guesswork out of buying tickets. They will show you, this is one of my favorite perks of the Game Time app, is they will show you exactly what your view from your seat is going to look like. Say you're going to a basketball game. You want to know what center court's going to look like. I do, right? You can go in the Game Time app, pick the seats you're interested in, and your view of the floor will pop up. Same thing with a concert, with a play, whatever you want to go see. Game Time is going to show you exactly how it's going to look right there in the Game Time app. So what you need to do is you need to take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Today's show is also brought to you by Rocket Money. Rocket Money, what they do is they will help you find subscriptions that maybe you forgot about or you were actually paying twice for. It does happen. Don't laugh. That is something that does happen. It's happened to me before. I don't want to admit that, but it has. And Rocket Money, what they do is they make it easy to track all those things down. And it's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together all in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, even the goals you want to hit this year financially. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved over a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. So if you want to cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster, Rocket Money is the way to go. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon, LOCKEDON. Again, rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said earlier, you can find the show anywhere you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. Also, if you didn't know, your favorite podcast now does have a newsletter. That's right. Locked On Cavs has a daily newsletter. Sign up for one-stop ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at lockedondaily.com. That is lockedondaily.com. The Cleveland Cavaliers are going to be a playoff team, right? Kenny Atkinson was actually asked about chasing the franchise record for most wins in a regular season the other day. The Cavs, the franchise record is 66 wins, which came during the 2008-2009 season. They went 66-16. It was the most fun regular season just like that I've ever watched from a basketball standpoint. We know that team didn't reach its end goal. They lost in the Eastern Conference Finals against the Orlando Magic, but the regular season team was awesome. And Kenny mentioned that that's not something he thinks about. You know, he did say that he started to think about playoff matchups a little bit if they do make it to the playoffs. And I kind of joked with him afterwards. I said, I think you're going to be able to find a way to sneak into the postseason there after starting 26 or at that point 25-4, now 26-4. So it got me to thinking, and someone did ask about this. Other than Boston, who are the most difficult teams for the Cavs in the postseason? Because we know what the Boston Celtics are. We know what they represent. We know what they do well. We know how the Cavs match up with them. I think that would be a very long series. I think that would be an incredibly entertaining series. If we get there, that's my hope for the conference finals this year. I think that is the best Eastern Conference finals that we could possibly have is the Cavs and the Boston Celtics. But there are going to be other teams that they're going to have to face along the way, some of whom do present some significant challenges. And the first two that I thought of when I saw that question were, okay, well, it's New York and it's actually Orlando, which is, we know the team the Cavs played in the first round of the playoffs last year, in which they won in 7 games. And I do want to talk about Orlando first, because the Magic are a team that I think are on the rise. I think they're sort of a year behind the Cavs. And, we kind of saw that last year, where they're a team that lost in the first round last year, has expectations of reaching further heights in the postseason this year. And what I do think makes this challenging is the Magic right now, they've not had the best start to the season. They've been good. Don't get me wrong. They haven't had the best start to the season, but that's been because of injuries, right? Paolo Banchero, I believe, has only played in 5 games so far this season, where he is dealing with a torn oblique. Franz Wagner was having a great season. I think he was going to be an all-star in the Eastern Conference without question. And then he tore his oblique. And they've been shorthanded all year. They've been without their stars almost for the entire season. And they're still 19-12. They're still in 4th place in the Eastern Conference as I record this on Christmas night. That is something that tells me, okay, this team, while right now they're not at full strength, they're still playing really hard. And I think a lot of the guys on this roster that otherwise wouldn't be getting the experience that they are getting, they're really stepping up for the Magic. And when they get Paolo Banchero back, because they will get Paolo Banchero back, I don't know when it's going to be, but he will be back at some point. When they get him back, he's going to be somebody that has more help now, because the rest of that Orlando Magic roster had to step up during the regular season. That's going to make them a better team when the postseason does arrive. That's going to make them a tougher out when the postseason does get here. Like Jalen Suggs has been really good for this team. Tristan Da Silva, a first-round rookie, a guy that I thought would have made sense for the Cavs had he fallen to 20. He obviously didn't get there, but he's getting minutes now, more minutes than he would be otherwise. And I think that's something that's going to benefit him, and it's going to benefit the Orlando Magic when the postseason arrives. That was the team that I first thought of. And then the other team that I thought of, the New York Knicks. Like, how storybook would that be for considering that where this Cavs era started, which I look at as when Donovan Mitchell arrived in Cleveland. This Cavs era started, its first postseason look was kind of getting embarrassed by the New York Knicks in 5 games. I think that there's a world where the Cavs reach the conference finals by beating New York in the second round. I could see that being a 1-4 matchup, maybe a 2-3 matchup if Boston is able to overtake the Cavs in the standings. I don't know that they will, but I think that that could be a matchup where the Knicks have star power. Jalen Brunson's awesome. Karl Anthony Towns, I think, is having the best year of his career. I don't totally trust him in the postseason, but he's having an awesome season. And then they also have plenty of wing defenders and guys like Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, Josh Hart. Like, they've got a good roster of guys that they're kind of set up to beat the Cavs in some way. What I think that next series could serve as is that could be Evan Mobley's true coming out party, because Karl Anthony Towns is not a great defender. He's somebody that I think Evan could dominate offensively. And with the way the Knicks are set up, they've got guys that I think can not stop Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland, but can make life difficult for Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland. I'm not so sure that they have an answer for Evan Mobley, and I think that's where he could really explode onto the scene. The teams I'm not super worried about, surprisingly, the Milwaukee Bucks. Giannis is awesome. Damian Lillard is awesome. I don't think they have any creation outside of those guys. I don't trust Chris Middleton to be healthy. I don't trust Brook Lopez to be healthy or all that great in the postseason. Like, that is a team that they have underachieved. I'm not buying them in the postseason either. Miami, I think Jimmy Butler is going to get traded. I don't know where. It's not going to be to Cleveland, but I do think that the Miami Heat not going to be a very formidable playoff team. And then the Atlanta Hawks. I know that the Hawks beat the Cavs twice. 2 of their 4 losses are against or against Atlanta, excuse me. I just don't think that Hawks team is really good. They have a very weird win profile where they've beaten some good teams other than the Cavs. They beat Boston. They've got some really good wins, but they also have some really bad losses. And Trae Young, truthfully, is not having all the credit years. Assist numbers are sky high. Shooting numbers are down. And then Philadelphia is the last one, where Philly just, that team right now is an absolute dumpster fire. If they get to the postseason, I think the Cavs would make very, very quick work of them. But Christmas Day has come and gone. We didn't see the Cavs play yesterday. I think we're going to see them in the future. I'll tell you why next right here on Locked On Cavs. Plus, I want to talk about Christmas Day uniforms and my favorite Christmas Day game of all time. So we'll do that next right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by Robinhood. Robinhood Gold. With them, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%, right? Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.25% APY on uninvested cash and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on IRA account contributions. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at robinhood.com/gold. That's robinhood.com/gold. ROBINHOOD.com/GOLD. Terms to apply. For product specific disclosures, visit robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said earlier, if you're watching on YouTube, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. Also, sign up for the newsletter if you haven't before. Your favorite podcast, which is Locked On Cavs, I know that, now has a newsletter. It's your one-stop for ultimate league and team coverage delivered right to your inbox every day. Sign up for free now at lockedondaily.com. So Christmas has come and gone. The Cavs did not play on Christmas. I talked on yesterday's episode about how I think that the NBA could go about fixing that. I think it'd be a good thing if they decided to kind of have a little bit more of a flex scheduling type of thing where they can have teams that weren't originally scheduled to play on Christmas. I just think that that's something that should be fixed. The other thing that I do think should be fixed is I want to see Christmas Day uniforms come back, right? Like the NBA has, I do think, a little bit of an identity problem. The City Edition uniforms, I think, kind of goes into that. I could see the NBA getting rid of the City Edition uniforms in a couple of years. I know that they build out these things years in advance, and I know that the Cavs already have their City Edition uniforms for next year, so they're not going away now. But after, in a few years, could I see the City Edition uniform ceasing to exist? I could. I think that the Christmas Day uniform needs to come back. I just think that is something that made that day special, and especially now with the NFL having games yesterday. It was great to see Pittsburgh lose. The NFL having games yesterday like that, it's just something that, okay, the NBA needs to make this day special again. I think it's lost a little bit of its luster on Christmas Day. And maybe I'm crazy for thinking this, but I do think part of it is the uniforms. Seeing teams on Christmas Day in marquee matchups wearing special uniforms that are only going to be worn once. Like, I think that's a really, really cool thing. And I do think that's something the NBA does need to bring back. I also do think that the Cavs are going to be on Christmas Day next year. I don't think they were this year because they didn't win the offseason. They didn't have a flashy offseason. Their biggest move, which was awesome, was hiring Kenny Atkinson. The NBA didn't expect this team to start 26-4. The Cavs did not expect to start 26-4 this season. But next year, if they have even a little bit of postseason success, I'd be very, very surprised if they're not on Christmas Day. And I think that they will be for the next several years. And I think a big part of that is Evan Mobley, the development of his game. I think he's going to be somebody that's going to be an all-star this year and in years to come. And I think that the NBA is going to want to start showcasing him a little bit more than they do. I also wanted to talk about my favorite ever Christmas Day game, which I'm sure you can predict was the 2016 Christmas Day game between the Cavs and the Warriors. It was the first matchup with Kevin Durant on the Golden State Warriors. I was lucky enough to cover that game for ESPN Cleveland, and it was maybe the best regular season basketball game I've ever been to. And at some point, I need to count how many regular season games I've gone to over the years. But that game was the one that stands out to me. Is like, this is not a regular season game. I remember saying on the radio after that game, like, yeah, you know, when you walk outside the arena, it feels like Christmas. There might have been snow on the ground. It was chilly, but inside that building, it felt like June. And I don't know that I've been in a regular season game quite like that since. There's the sequence that's gone around social media where, you know, LeBron had a layup and then Kevin Durant kind of cherry picked and got a dunk over Kevin Love on the other end. And then LeBron cherry picked and threw down a dunk on to like basically make it a 4-2 run instead of just evening up. Those moments are moments that I think every Cavs fan will always remember. I think they're moments that I will always remember. And I just think that that's something that's what basketball on Christmas is about. We don't have a Cavs Warriors type of rivalry anymore in the NBA. I think that the league would be good if it were. Although I will say having 4 straight finals of the same 2 teams was probably not the league's favorite thing, but I just think it made that day really special. The shot that Kyrie Irving hit to put the Cavs in front was awesome. Like, that's a move that I think every kid wanted to go out in their backyard that next day with maybe a basketball they got for Christmas and try and replicate it because it was just so smooth over Klay Thompson. LeBron's dunk, which was, you know, if you look at it, that dunk was the same play that the Cavs tried to clinch Game 7 of the finals on, and LeBron got fouled and ended up splitting the free throws, which did put the Cavs up 4, but that was the play that they tried to clinch Game 7 of the finals on. They brought it back for Christmas Day. LeBron dunked. It was an and one. Like, that was a really, really special moment in that building. And that will probably always be my favorite Christmas Day game. But thank you to you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today. Thank you for making it your first listen every day. I wanted to make sure that I gave you guys something over Christmas. I don't know what everyone does for Christmas. I know for some people, this day is harder than others. And I just wanted to kind of be mindful of that. And, you know, if you're somebody who you maybe don't do stuff on Christmas, but you want to continue in your listening habits, you want to have some Cavs content, I wanted to make sure that I was there and had that stuff going for you. But for everybody, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. I'll be back tomorrow. The Cavs are back in action tomorrow, taking on the Denver Nuggets. In Denver. It's the start of a 4-game West Coast trip. I'm going to talk about that trip as a whole on tomorrow's show because I just think it's a really interesting trip. It's going to be a good, I don't think it's like a measuring stick trip, but I think that the Cavs will have a real opportunity to play well against some good teams. So keep it locked right here. Again, anywhere you find your podcast, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else, drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. And if you're watching on YouTube, do me a favor. Hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. I'll be back tomorrow with more Locked On Cavs.